Let me take a moment to breathe, a moment to feel, and a moment to truly see what is happening around us. Because today, something powerful, something unsettling, and something very real is unfolding right before our eyes. Let me ask you, what happens when the world's biggest stage is used not for unity, not for peace, but for politics? Raw, unfiltered, and unapologetic. Ladies and gentlemen, today I speak not just to your minds, but to your conscience. Because President Donald Trump has turned his gaze eastward toward India and made a move few saw coming. He has targeted India. Yes, he has. And not with warheads, not with armies, but with alliances. And in the same breath, he has struck a deal with Pakistan. Now I want you to sit with that for a second. This isn't just about foreign policy. This isn't just about trade routes or strategic borders. This is about influence. This is about intent. And this is about a global game that you and I are watching unfold, move by move. Some are calling it bold. Some are calling it betrayal. But let's call it what it really is. A signal, a message, a realignment of power, and a test of relationships that go deeper than diplomacy. Ladies and gentlemen, when you see a handshake in Islamabad while a glare is cast toward New Delhi, you don't just ask what happened. You ask why now. You ask what's the cost. You ask who benefits and who bleeds. Because this isn't just politics. It's positioning. It's posturing. 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 Hussein Jibriye C C C C C C C C C C C C C C C C C. This isn't just a change in travel plans or a polite diplomatic gesture. It's a recalibration of alliances with potentially long-lasting consequences. When a global leader like Trump redirects attention in this way, it reflects more than just personal preference. It signals a reshaping of priorities and power dynamics on the world stage. Historically, the U.S.-India relationship has been seen as one of shared democratic values, economic cooperation, and mutual interests in counterbalancing rising powers like China. Over the past 2 decades, both nations have worked to deepen military partnerships, expand trade, and build people-to-people connections that reflect shared democratic aspirations. But this shift, this sudden warmth toward Pakistan, complicates that trajectory. The move to engage Pakistan more directly, striking deals, opening channels, showing favor, raises serious questions. Why now? What does the U.S. stand to gain? And what is India at risk of losing? It values mutual interests and regional stability. When the sermon says that India is being targeted, it refers to a subtle but significant shift in how that partnership is being handled, particularly under President Trump's administration. It's not about open hostility or conflict, but about actions, signals, and choices that quietly undermine India's importance in America's foreign policy agenda. These moves send a message that India's status as a key ally is being questioned or perhaps deprioritized in favor of more opportunistic relationships elsewhere. Targeting India in this context means diminishing its influence by favoring its regional rival, Pakistan. It means entering into deals that empower Pakistan while ignoring or challenging India's concerns, whether they relate to security, trade, or international diplomacy. This could be seen in decisions that overlook India's stance on regional terrorism or in rhetoric that criticizes India's economic policies while praising Pakistan for limited cooperation. The impact of such moves is not just political, but deeply symbolic. They shake the foundation of mutual respect and signal that India is no longer central to U.S. strategic thinking, at least in the eyes of this administration. This type of targeting also affects how the rest of the world perceives India's global standing. When a major power like the United States appears to distance itself from India or chooses to align more closely with Pakistan, it changes the narrative. Other nations watch closely and adjust their own alliances accordingly. For India, which has worked hard to emerge as a regional leader and a voice on the global stage, this can be damaging. It questions the reliability of its partnerships and puts pressure on its diplomatic leverage. What makes this especially concerning is that India has, over the years, positioned itself as a responsible, stable, and democratic counterbalance in Asia. In a region marked by authoritarian regimes and volatile politics, India has been a key anchor for democratic values and economic openness. To see that role diminished or sidelined by one of its closest allies is more than a diplomatic snub. It is a strategic blow. It forces India to reconsider its position and rethink its alliances, which could have a ripple effect on regional and global power dynamics. When the sermon describes Pakistan as being used as a pawn in someone else's narrative, it brings to light a deeper and often uncomfortable truth about how smaller or strategically located nations are treated in global politics. Pakistan, situated at the crossroads of South Asia, Central Asia, and the Middle East, holds undeniable geopolitical importance. Over the years, global powers like the United States have frequently engaged with Pakistan, not purely out of long-term partnership, but for tactical reasons, often tied to military access, counter-terrorism operations, and influence over regional dynamics. This engagement, while occasionally beneficial to Pakistan in terms of aid or recognition, has often come at the cost of being instrumentalized, treated as a means to an end rather than a respected sovereign partner. President Trump's renewed interest in Pakistan fits this pattern. The sermon suggests that his administration's outreach was less about building trust and more about leveraging Pakistan's position to achieve specific short-term goals, whether related to peace negotiations in Afghanistan, counterbalancing China's Belt and Road ambitions, or gaining intelligence advantages. When a country is approached in this way, the relationship becomes transactional, not foundational. Pakistan is pulled into narratives written by larger powers, narratives that may shift dramatically with changing administrations, interests, or headlines. This instability undermines the potential for a dignified and balanced partnership. The danger of being used as a pawn is that it often leads to internal instability and external distrust. Within Pakistan, alliances that appear external beneficial may cause division, suspicion, or backlash, especially when they seem to compromise national interests or sovereignty. Externally, other nations, including neighbors like India, view these alliances with skepticism, believing they are based on convenience rather than principle. This can isolate Pakistan, making it appear complicit in strategies that may not serve its long-term goals. Worse, once the usefulness of the partnership fades, in the eyes of the larger power, the support may vanish just as quickly as it arrived, leaving Pakistan to manage the fallout. This dynamic also affects how Pakistan is seen by its own people. When deals are made that seem to benefit foreign agendas more than domestic progress, public trust in leadership and in the broader geopolitical process can erode. People begin to feel like their country is being sold or traded for influence and recognition. The result is a cycle of dependency, where Pakistan is repeatedly drawn into deals and decisions not entirely of its own making, reinforcing the perception that it is being moved, not moving itself. The sermon's fifth point is a direct and urgent call for public awareness, an appeal for citizens not to be passive observers of geopolitical shifts, but to become actively engaged, informed, and vigilant. When the world witnesses powerful figures making strategic decisions that can alter global dynamics, such as President Trump targeting India while cozying up to Pakistan, the consequences are not limited to political elites or distant foreign ministries. These decisions have real-world effects that trickle down into the everyday lives of people. That's why the sermon insists that the public must stay awake, alert, and aware. It's a recognition that in today's interconnected world, silence is no longer a safe position, and ignorance is not an excuse. People often assume that foreign policy is far removed from their reality. But in truth, these choices shape the global economy, influence security, determine trade relationships, and even affect social stability. When alliances shift suddenly and dramatically, as suggested in the sermon, entire regions may experience tension, conflict, or economic volatility. Citizens who remain unaware of these developments are left vulnerable, unable to understand the reasons behind rising fuel prices, increasing immigration restrictions, or sudden changes in international news narratives. This is why awareness is framed not just as an option but as a responsibility. Moreover, the sermon implies that part of the reason powerful figures can make bold and sometimes destabilizing moves is because much of the public isn't watching closely. Leaders thrive on applause, distraction, and the fleeting nature of attention spans. But when the public begins to ask sharp questions, why is this alliance happening now? What does it mean for our existing relationships? Who benefits and who loses? It puts pressure on policymakers to think beyond short-term optics. It forces a level of accountability that doesn't exist when people are disengaged or misinformed. The phrase "stay awake" is about more than just being informed. It's about cultivating critical thinking in a time when propaganda, spin, and misinformation can easily dominate public discourse. It urges people not to be swayed by the glamour of press conferences or the drama of breaking news, but to look deeper, to analyze the motives, and to follow the long-term patterns rather than being distracted by immediate gestures. Global politics is increasingly about perception, narrative control, and psychological influence. In such an environment, being truly alert means understanding not just what is being done, but why it's being done and how it could affect the future. The sixth point of the sermon focuses on the moral obligation of leadership and how true leadership should rise above political gain, spotlight, or media spectacle. It speaks to the kind of leadership that prioritizes building bridges rather than exploiting divisions, that values long-term peace over short-term victories. When President Trump engages in high-profile deals or shifts foreign policy in a dramatic fashion, such as aligning with Pakistan while seemingly sidelining India, the sermon questions not just the decision itself, but the intention behind it. Is it for global stability? Is it to foster trust between nations? Or is it simply to make headlines, provoke reactions, and appear powerful on the world stage? In this framing, the sermon holds a mirror to the type of leadership the world is increasingly seeing: performative, impulsive, and often driven by personal legacy rather than collective progress. The danger here lies in how such leadership choices erode the very fabric of diplomacy, which is built on consistency, dialogue, and respect. Deals that are made to serve political narratives or campaign optics may look successful in the moment, but often unravel because they lack the depth and sincerity. The answer lies in the delicate balance of global strategy. Pakistan holds key geographical and geopolitical importance, especially in relation to Afghanistan, China, and the Middle East. Whether for military access, intelligence cooperation, or regional influence, the U.S. sees value in re-engaging Pakistan at a higher level. But that decision doesn't happen in a vacuum. It comes with consequences for India, who may now view this shift as a betrayal, or at the very least a red flag signaling diminishing importance in America's foreign policy playbook. Trump's targeting of India may not be overt aggression, but it's certainly symbolic. In politics, perception is power. Favoring Pakistan while casting doubt on India's policies, trade stance, or military choices creates a narrative, one that challenges India's role as a reliable U.S. partner. It also emboldens other players in the region to reconsider their own strategies. When the U.S. president extends a hand to one rival while turning a cold shoulder to the other, the global ripple effect is immediate. Allies re-evaluate, adversaries reposition, and in the middle of it all, long-standing partnerships tremble. This strategic redirection isn't just about the countries involved. It's about the message being sent to the world. That message suggests that alliances can be shifted overnight, that loyalty has limits, and that strategic gain outweighs ideological alignment. In a world already fraught with uncertainty, this shift by Trump places new tension on an already complex triangle of US-India-Pakistan relations. The sermon points to a growing trend in global politics where alliances are no longer rooted in shared values or long-term commitments, but rather in short-term transactional decisions. President Trump's approach to foreign relations often leans heavily on deal-making, where relationships between countries are measured by immediate returns, rather than ideological alignment or historical cooperation. In the case of his actions toward India and Pakistan, the sermon suggests that diplomacy is being replaced by a business-style model of engagement. Instead of nurturing strategic partnerships built over decades, Trump's foreign policy appears to be guided by who can offer the most leverage, access, or advantage at a particular moment. This kind of maneuvering undermines the traditional foundation of diplomacy, which relies on trust, continuity, and mutual respect. When leaders engage in this kind of transactional foreign policy, the world watches closely. Traditional allies begin to question the stability of their relationship with the United States. They ask whether their alliance is based on shared principles, or if it's simply a matter of convenience until a better offer comes along. This sends a signal that loyalty, consistency, and long-term strategy are no longer the priority. What matters most is the deal on the table today, regardless of who helped yesterday or who may need support tomorrow. It transforms global diplomacy into a marketplace where influence is bought, not earned. In this context, Trump's shift toward Pakistan is not just a diplomatic gesture, it is a calculated move to extract value, whether through military cooperation, intelligence access, or regional leverage. By turning this relationship into a transaction, he redefines the nature of the U.S. presence in South Asia. At the same time, by sidelining India, a democratic partner that has invested in a growing relationship with the United States, Trump risks sending a message that commitment means little when compared to opportunity. This approach has serious implications. When global leaders begin treating countries like clients in a negotiation, the human cost, social, political, and economic, gets pushed aside. The focus turns to what each party can give, not who they are. It's no longer about creating peace or stability. It's about deals, optics, and positioning. In doing so, relationships lose depth. Partnerships lose authenticity. The essence of diplomacy, which is to build bridges that endure beyond leadership changes, gets lost in the shuffle. Instead of nations standing shoulder to shoulder for a common good, they are left wondering if they'll be the next ones traded for political gain. India, a nation of over 1 billion people and one of the world's largest democracies, has long maintained a strategic and symbolic partnership with the United States. That partnership has been built not only on economic cooperation and defense collaboration, but also on shared democratic required for lasting impact. When leaders prioritize spectacle over substance, it becomes clear that relationships between nations are being treated like scripted events rather than partnerships founded on mutual trust. The sermon also challenges the audience to examine the human cost of such transactional politics. Behind every deal, there are communities, families, and lives that are directly affected. When military cooperation is prioritized without concern for how it will impact civilians, when trade agreements ignore the needs of workers, or when strategic alliances overlook issues like human rights or democratic integrity, leadership fails in its most basic responsibility to protect and uplift people. This kind of failure may not always make headlines, but its effects are deeply felt and long remembered. Furthermore, the sermon highlights that the true test of leadership isn't in how loud it speaks or how quickly it acts, but in whether it can hold firm to values even when faced with tempting shortcuts. Leadership is not just about who can make the biggest deal or control the narrative, but who can rise above ego, ambition, and pressure to do what is just, even if it's not what is popular. The absence of such leadership results in a global environment where nations feel uncertain, alliances feel fragile, and people feel like they are being led by those more interested in power than in purpose. Let me say this clearly, India, with its billion hearts and bold democracy, deserves more than a transactional moment, and Pakistan, with its fragile trust and fierce pride, deserves more than to be a pawn in someone else's narrative. And we, yes, we the people, deserve the truth. Not just press conferences, not just tweets, not just photo ops. We deserve leadership that builds bridges, not just headlines. So I say to you all, stay awake, stay alert, and stay aware. Because while presidents may come and go, the future we inherit will be shaped by the decisions made today and by the silence, or the courage, of people just like us.